Hey everyone, welcome back to New Slang. I'm your host, music journalist Thomas Mooney. This is episode 125. We close out the week being joined by singer-songwriter Canty. So earlier this year, when I was really in the process of revamping the podcast, I was reaching out to a lot of people, making lists and so forth, kind of seeing how available people were and seeing what their plans were for later in 2020 as far as albums and recording and release schedules, etc. And one of those people near the top of that list was Canty. I had really enjoyed her 2018 album called Motel Bouquet. I just love the in-depth storytelling and the intensity that kind of radiated off that album. There was a lot of really beautiful tension, and it was really beautifully dark and haunting in nature as well. And so I kind of figured I would reach out and see if she had anything planned for 2020 as far as an album, or if she was just up for talking about music and whatnot. Long story short, we figured we'd wait until later in the year to see exactly where those plans had kind of fallen in place and see if she had a better idea on when her next album would be coming out. So it was a nice surprise when last week, when her PR, they reached out and said, while a new album isn't just right around the corner, she does have a new song that she's putting out, and do you want to talk to her? And so, of course, I said, yeah, I would love to talk to her about that song. And so, the song that Caitlin just released is called Where's the Heart of My Country? It officially came out yesterday. I'll, of course, throw a link to it in the show notes so you can listen to it if you haven't had the chance just yet. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Soto. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Soto is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus. And it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Soto plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. All right, as mentioned, the New Slang Patreon is up and running. It's a great way to help support New Slang and to get a couple of extra perks. I'll throw a link into the show notes for those of you who are interested. But the gist is, for $3, $5, $10, or $15 a month, you'll get anything from ad-free episodes to previously unheard episodes to New Slang merch. Again, just a really easy, fun way to help support the podcast. All right, I think that does it for the intro here. Here is Canty. You have this new song coming out just in a couple of days. By the time this podcast is out, it'll already be out. And, it's called Where's the Heart of My Country? And it very much feels like you've tapped into some of the restlessness, the unsureness, the mixed emotions of the dread and the anger, and even the optimism of trying to find our way back on course, if you will. Mm-hmm. I guess how old of a song was this when you first initially started kind of putting it together?
I've been hanging on to it because I wanted to, I was planning to put it on my next record, and pandemic kind of disrupted those plans. But I wrote it, I believe, a year before I recorded it. So I think I wrote it last June. And we recorded it this June. So it's, it does feel timely again with the wildfires burning and, country's still in rough shape as far as empathy goes and divisions. So I started singing it out on some of my shows. I only had a few this year before we were all locked away, and it felt like it really was ringing true, and people were coming up after the show and saying, which CD is this one on? So I felt like it was landing with people. And I think you're right. It is timely, but it's unfortunately this time that we're in seems to be stretching a lot longer. I keep feeling like I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then, it seems like there's another thing to scream at or cry about in the news every 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's sometimes I'm convinced that, yeah, like things are as bad as they've ever been, and then other times I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just because we're all paying attention so much more. We're just hooked to our phones and getting bad news all the time since it's more available. But it's I don't know. I read that you were reading the Woody Guthrie autobiography whenever you were first kind of initially this idea sparked for you. That feels like that should be like required reading for every person in this country.
I agree. I see it on everyone's bookshelf too. And it was on mine for a while. And I started it. So many short stories, really, and I guess vignettes. And so you can really pick it up and put it down. And I think reading that book at the time, I was also traveling across the country. I was literally flying. The song starts out with, being in California, and it goes on to a flying scene. And that was quite true to where I was flinging my body around this country at the time. I was out in California on this gorgeous, this like 3 days of, I think it was maybe March or April. It was one of the very green, lush seasons in California when I usually go. It feels so dry, especially being a born and raised Vermonter and living in swampy Tennessee. It feels so dry and like right on the cusp of breaking from its dryness, of lighting on fire. And so it was raining the whole time. It was so beautiful and lush. And then the session I was on was I was actually a sideman for a session, which is so rare for me. I'm usually, running the show and making my own records, but this was singing on someone else's records and singing lead on someone else's records. So I was in a band of guys I'd looked up to forever, and I was just on cloud nine. And I think this song sparked. I was flying home. I was looking out the window. I was switching back and forth between the scrolling of the phone and staring out the window. And then I had my Woody Guthrie book with me. And those three points of view, I think, really just got me sparking with this song. And, the first time I ever got on a plane was, I think I was 18 years old. And I remember people being just shocked. Like, you haven't flown in your life yet? And I remember looking out the window the whole flight and just feeling so amazed. And I still spend a whole lot of time looking out the window when I'm flying. Like, it's just still an amazing experience, even though I do it, or used to do it before pandemic, like every few weeks. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's no perspective like it. You get to really look down at the beautiful scenery in a whole new way, but I don't know what it is about just leaping off of the earth a little bit and, hanging over it and hovering over it. And it just makes you think about more than just the daily list of to-dos. And so I do spend a lot of time actually writing on planes.
Yeah. Like that, the perspective of the plane ride of being above, it's, mm-hmm. It's very much like if you've ever just sat and watched like an ant bed for 10 mm-hmm. minutes, and because, you're so much higher than it, and you just see all these ants moving around and they're so organized and everything like that. And, it feels very much like that when you're flying, and you do, like, I guess, like whenever you go, especially into that second verse with, the brown and green fields of where we've just kind of like carved up the land for, for pasture land or for farming or whatever, or even, obviously mm-hmm. cities. It very much feels like you're watching from like watching the ant pile.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've always loved that as well, like that, just looking out the window and kind of feeling small.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then also like one of the things that really obviously pops out in that very first verse is, you know, you use Jacaranda Blue, and I feel like, I guess like how did that word get in there? Because that's like, you know,
Yeah.
a good, nice, like just it sounds really cool when you say it, and like, were you holding on
Well,
to that for a while?
what? Oh, sorry, it just cut out. What was
Oh,
that?
I said, were you holding on to that word for a while? Like, oh, this needs to be in a song or something, or
You know, I used to hold on to words and wait to use them, and now I just deploy them as necessary. I try not to hang on to anything for too long. I was both struck by being in California, staying with some two comedian friends and their goofy dog, and we were basically, I was either making music or laughing or eating good food for 3 days straight. It was like that's my kind of spa, I guess. You know, that's the fuel back in the tank for me. And I remember walking to the studio, which you don't get to do often in LA, but I got to walk to work because I was staying so close. And they were like there was water on the sidewalk. You know, when do you see that in LA? And there are petals everywhere. And the jacaranda tree is so beautiful. It always struck me as like, what on earth is that? It was maybe the first plant I saw in California where I was like, how does that not exist in my life? And one of my friends, Eric Haywood, he's lived in LA for a lot of his life, and he told me about the jacaranda tree and how it would give you like a purple carpet on your front lawn. He had one friend who had this beautiful tree, and it was just raining purple petals. So that's where the stream of Jacaranda Blue came from for me. It was just such a beautiful image in real life. But you're right, it does have a nice flow to that word. It's a good word.
yeah. Well,
I hope I'm saying it right.
well, you know, it's one of those things where I think like obviously you're a songwriter, you're a storyteller, you appreciate language, and you know when you're listening to music like myself, like basically all day, it's always something that's really nice whenever, like I have not heard that in a song. Whenever you hear like a word that you've not heard in a song or something, it always just kind of takes you, and you're like, oh my gosh, like why hasn't this been
Cool.
done before? But also, you know, one of the things I wanted to bring up about this song in comparison to Woody that I think is kind of an interesting take is how for Woody being a dust bowler and, you know, like the John Steinbeckian kind of thing of moving west, going to California, and in this song, like you're kind of going from California back east. I really like that kind of thing as far as being kind of a different take on that plight, if you will, especially for, you know, a different year, a different kind of setting.
Era, yeah. I love how much you listened to this. It's amazing that you got that. That was a conscious decision in a couple ways. One was the Eden for me. That Garden of Eden just was. It started in that California place. It started in that hopeful setting, and I wanted to start it there. Like maybe we can get back there, you know, in that way. I'm from Vermont. I'm from the East Coast, so I was heading. You know, I was going back to Tennessee quite literally, but when I started writing the song, I was flying east. And you know, I honestly didn't think of, you know, the Woody going west kind of impulse, but that's a pretty cool, I'm going to use that from now on. Like it was just such a important part of my songwriting building block there. No, but it was really important to me the way the verses lined up. It felt like they were that I was intentionally moving east, just not in relationship to Woody. But I like that parallel.
Yeah, well, you know, in kind of like our, I guess the American culture, like so much of the American dream is always attached to going west. Like
Mm-hmm.
your fortune is out west. Your dreams, as far as like if you want to be a Hollywood star or
Mm-hmm.
make it big, or I mean, going out to the frontier, you're always heading west. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think that sometimes, I mean, I'm kind of from the middle of nowhere, but still like West Texas, and it feels very much like, oh, you're still headed west, while like the east is like still, I feel like I don't know, is as far as you being a a northeastern native, like have you ever felt that, I guess, like the West Coast has always been like the dream, or has it always for you always kind of been like, since there is New York City so close by and you did live there, that you not even really even thought about West Coast life or anything?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm born and raised Vermonter, and I lived in New York City for a decade, sort of accidentally. I worked there, and I stayed there for a variety of reasons. Just a decade just happened to get stuck in New York in some ways, but my heart was, I love Idaho. I mean, that's almost as far west as you can go. And that was a place for me where I started writing and where I started being a touring, full-time touring singer-songwriter. When I first started out, when I'd quit the jobs, I'd landed there for a full summer, and I would go back every summer. And I would feel like when I stepped off the plane, I would just feel like taller and stronger and lighter automatically. I just love, there's something about being out there that really makes you feel free, the wide open spaces and the how far you can see from the land. Maybe it is like being up in the sky, when you're flying over, you can see so far. But I love it there. I love Tennessee. I love Vermont. The problem with touring and loving this country is I keep falling in love with different places and different lives I would like to lead. I could just throw it all away and go live in Idaho and never leave, or I could just haul ass back to Vermont and never leave because it's so beautiful, especially right now. I can't look at pictures my family sending me because I get too jealous. And I love it in Nashville too. So, I mean, you get to know little pockets of this country, and through the way I travel, which is small clubs and, the little restaurant nearby that you love, and the van full of 2 or 3 other pals that you spend most of the time deep in conversation, that you don't have those types of that reality doesn't exist anywhere but on tour. And so I think that's what's led me to falling in love so much with this country. But I really don't have like one spot I would consider only my home or only my draw. But I'm telling you, definitely feel the Wild West. I think a lot of the songs I've written and a lot of the songs that I've covered, there's a good, a hefty share of that in my heart and in the words that I end up putting on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was talking with someone about how, I guess for as long as it's been around, that especially if you watch like old westerns, they all, like, one of the main things is like how the Wild West is dead, or like the frontier is closed, and it just kind of like has been a I guess maybe something that like people always tap into as far as storytelling goes, but I still don't think that's necessarily always true. I think that like if you can still find that frontier, that open space, if you look for it even in 2020, and it's just kind of like you can, I don't know how else to say it, like you can find that elbow room if you're looking for it. You can find that, like, that pioneering spirit if you search hard enough.
Oh yeah, you can drive down a road without passing anybody for a while in certain places, and I think my travels have led me not only to the big cities and then back home. Like most of the spots I played when I was starting out in Idaho were restaurants. You could get a gig and play for 3 hours, and I thought I could just play an hour set and redo it. And this is when I was first starting, and people would stay the whole time. So I had to quickly write more songs to fill out the set and learn a few. And so I was basically in Idaho. It's similar to, growing up in the Northeast and all the smaller towns I've played and little hole in the wall joints. The places I found don't feel quite as crowded. I know that's probably the opposite of what my booking agent would like. Like, okay, keep going to the empty places because you like it. But, we named one of our dogs after Mackie, Idaho, because it's one of the coolest spots I've ever been. And I would go every summer. And like, I got to know a lot of the people who live there. Just, one friend, her family, they're cattle ranchers, and they just know every place to fish and every place to hike. And they would, remember one day they threw me on a horse, they gave me a fishing pole, and we went out hiking. It was a perfect day in my opinion. But, so yeah, I definitely love the Wild West, as you put it. It's more like, it's less wild for me though. It's more, serene and empty and, lonely in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always loved just kind of being alone. And I feel like you can, especially like out in these like areas that are very rural or off the beaten path, you can just, there's I don't know, I always feel comfort in just kind of having like that day by yourself or with just a handful of people. And I don't know, there's just something that kind of like recharges the batteries. So
I'm with you.
I just love that. You mentioned like obviously this new song, you were putting it together, you were writing it on the plane, and how you do find time on planes to write. And obviously like your last record, all those kind of songs on that album were very much they felt like they were all kind of written in green rooms and on tours and in vans and motel rooms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is I feel like a lot of people can sometimes feel that writing while traveling is difficult to find that time. I guess like, does it take practice to I guess like make the time to write and on tour, or did it just kind of come natural? Is that just kind of something that just worked for you?
Well, I think two things. When I'm flying, it's one of the only times I'm alone now. I usually tour with other people these days. So what used to be one person starting out in a car, just me by myself in my little red Volvo, like shooting off from, the corner of shooting off from New York City or from Vermont and driving like 6 hours for one gig that paid $100 and driving back like I just won the lottery. That kind of, those 6 hours both ways were spent like in anticipation and thinking about set list, and also like, oh shoot, I need to have this song for that set. That would have been great. On the way home, it's just, there's a lot of free time to think, and I listen to a lot of music too. But I think when I'm in motion, I'm only writing by jotting something down, like dictating it into my phone or just making a voice memo. And I'm not usually, having the focus or like the ability really to just distill the whole thing and have a song done. Sometimes songs happen like that, but usually I think a lot about it and have a couple approaches that get thrown in the trash can. And that happens more when I'm stationary at a desk again, or a kitchen table, really.
Mm-hmm. Like all the.
But
go ahead.
Oh no, I think that's the process of collecting those ideas, or when they hit you, is when I'm in motion. But the finishing off of them has to, for me, be a little more of a intentional pen and paper. Gosh, the song's been nagging me and I don't have it done enough yet to sing to myself or sing on a show. I want to finish that. Where is that song? Why won't it go away? I gotta finish it so it'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can't sing it to get it out of my head yet. So
yeah, like I guess like you've used the road more so as that place for inspiration place of like where you have time to think. I think that's like the underrated part in all this is, I think, and I've talked about this probably on the podcast a few times now, that where listeners are going, okay, you've mentioned this a million times now, we get it. But I guess like we kind of romance like the getting the guitar, getting the pen and paper, and like writing the song, and that's the writing of the song. Where in reality, it's a lot more of a slower process than that, of collecting those ideas and then actually thinking about what that is. Why do you want to say that? Why is that why are you trying to like scratch that itch?
Yep.
And then like all that prep work, all of that kind of stuff is like just as important, if not more important than actually jotting down the lyrics and finding the melody and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I tend to think that you have to show up for the song. The song's going to show up, so you can go around finding that inspiration as it hits you, but you also, at least I also have to sit down and make sure I'm hanging out near the tools, the pen and the paper and my guitar, in order to ever get something done. I think it's good to have little bits of songs that keep floating around until they find their home. You get to see if they're worthwhile, if they hold up in different lights, if they, in different moments, is it still saying something strong that I want to think about more, instead of just ripping through songs every 5 minutes. Here's a new song. I mean, anyone can do that, but are they good? Are they good songs? Like, it's great practice, absolutely, to just write. I tend to fall somewhere in the middle. I will go through periods of both like collector and not finishing a single thing, and then the periods of like 3 songs in 1 week that are just done and really like locked in the way I want to keep them, so just depends on what season it is for me.
This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. Yeah. Now you mentioned with Where's the Heart of My Country, like you playing that obviously before it was released, and getting a lot of feedback from audiences. I guess before this record, obviously before this time, was that something that you like to do? Kind of like test the songs out in front of a live audience and kind of figure that part out, or have you more traditionally been just kind of holding the songs on until they're ready to be recorded?
Oh, I love to try them out. I think that's part of my process. It's part of the writing of the song. I think it's not done, for me, it feels like there's a version that is done once it's on a record. But when it's live, I tend to play with a lot of different bands. Let's say like one tour will be 4 days and it will be with only me and a pedal steel player. And the next week I'll be playing with an upright bass and an electric guitar, or, I'll go on tour with Noam and it'll just be me and banjo. And the songs change so much with a different instrumentation and with, what that human brings to the song, and how they might say, hey, do you want to start this with, like, let's do a little intro verse here. And usually the lyrics, I'm not like, I love how Bob Dylan just changes his,
Yeah.
he doesn't really, care how you think the song goes. He adds verses and changes words even to the classic ones, that
Right.
you feel like, oh gosh, you can do that. I remember seeing him play live. I was like, wow, that's another thing I never really thought of, like you can just keep moving them. But while they're still cooking, I don't feel like I want to put it on a record until I've aired them out with other bandmates and in front of audiences. Like for me, there can be a real navel gazing, self-centered diary reading kind of aspect to singer-songwriterdom that I don't dig. Like it's a little too self-absorbed sometimes. My feelings, my emotions, here's the diary, like flip through it. That's not interesting to me. And I want to make sure that a song isn't just interesting to me, because then it's not working. It works when it's interesting and it hits somebody else's heart, not just my own autobiography that I read to myself. That's boring. So I guess it's like my R&D is going out and playing my shows and throwing in a new song, or, a song I know wants another verse before I record it, but what the hell, I'll see what this audience, how they hear it, hear how I hear it when I sing it in a room with people. It's not like I'm doing an applause-o-meter, this song is the best song. It's more like you understand a concept if you try to explain it to somebody and you realize that you understand it because they got it, that sometimes you think you know something until you try to explain it, and then you realize your words are one on top of each other and you got to like stew with that concept a little longer. But so for this next record I'm making, I had a session that was canceled with coronavirus, and we played a live show as a trio that we right the week before we were going to go into the studio, just because we really wanted to feel them as a band together. And I'd never done that before. I'd always toured the band after the record's made, but this felt like a really, really helpful way of like rehearsing, but rehearsing not in just behind closed doors, where there are different, I guess you give weight to different things when you are with a bunch of musicians and you're all, approaching the song with your own blinders on. When you're in front of an audience, you're reacting in a way, you're more open, and you have to fly by the seat of your pants. You only get one shot at that song. It's not like a studio. You can go back and do it as many times as you want. Or you can use the magic wand and recreate things from afar. So there's something just honest about live performance that is just the most important element of songwriting for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that so much of that is tied to that interaction, like just kind of like road testing songs, and it has to help like understand more of what you're trying to say, getting better at saying that, getting the better feel of like how a song should sound like. And obviously also like, you mentioned, playing with different bands and different kind of lineups. That's something that I've always been really interested in as far as like, whenever you have the song and like, it's that initial idea, and, it's still kind of probably like a bare bones, just you acoustic idea. You may have like some ideas of like what you would want on it, but then like, I guess it's very abstract to go, let's take that and then just, record it. And that's how however the studio magic of it all. But I feel like you would have to, you're probably understanding like, oh, this works better than this, or I like this better than this. As far as like knowing, whenever you're doing it, kind of like whenever you're playing live before recording, you're understanding what that song needs or wants. I know I'm just rambling here now, but like, I guess like, to me, I don't know. For me, if I was a songwriter, I feel like I would constantly be playing new songs in front of live audiences before cutting them, just so like you kind of understand the song better.
Yeah, it's hard to do when you want to be presenting everything you do in the best light possible. It kind of leaves you wide open and makes you feel like you're right at the beginning again, which I think is really important. I think it's hard. A lot of my friends, much, let's say, bigger audiences and more critical views of anything they do. It's like, oh, this person's releasing something and this is their new take on, the next 3 years. Every 3 years they put out a record or something. It's like momentous, and that's important, but it makes it hard, especially in this day and age, to try anything out, because everyone's got their phones out, and it's, their new song is going to be up on YouTube before they're even home. And I think it's shut down some of that creativity from folks who might have playing on a much larger stage, let's say. But for me, I would never want to lose that. It's like one of the hardest things about this moment in time is not touring and not being able to have that part of that feedback loop, and I feel lucky that I have that sort of part of my process. It's all accidental. I was playing gigs for peanuts at first. I was playing solo, and then the gigs started paying a little more, so I'd bring somebody. Or, I'm touring from California up to Seattle and, maybe out to Idaho, and I know Eric Haywood's going to be in LA, so let's throw him in the car and I'll fly him home from Boise. It's just a practical approach to things. But in the meantime, I'll be playing these songs with brilliant pedal steel player all the way around this gorgeous country, and learning about the songs and, learning from his take on them. And that's like, it's all part of the process for me.
Yeah. You mentioned working on a new album. I guess like, and also just kind of being, sidetracked by, not necessarily sidetracked, but sideswiped in a lot of ways by the pandemic and just 2020 in general. I guess where are you at in that process? When do you think you'll be able to release this next upcoming record?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was advised by my my publicist not to talk about the next record because I haven't made it yet. He's like, save your talking for that for later, but you asked, so I'm going to talk about it. He's it's good advice, but I was about to make this record 6 months pregnant with Nashville musicians and one drummer who's coming from LA. And we were about to make it, and the studio closed its doors because the pandemic hit. And so we were, I think, 2 days away, and we had the chance to record in a bigger place and in a studio that was still open and with a local drummer. And we just decided it was kind of a stupid idea to do this because all of us had just been recently traveling. Nobody knew what the heck this new virus was about. And so we just said, well, let's table it. But being 6 months pregnant meant that, it makes it a little harder to play guitar. And when I got to around 8 months, there was no way I was going to go into a studio and feel like I could record the way I want, which is live and intensely and over a course of 3 or 4 days with the same crew playing live. You're just playing one really long concert, and that's not physically I wasn't really down with that. And then the virus was introducing other variables and questions on how to do that safely. And so now I've got a baby, so I've still got to get to the studio as soon as I can get into a little schedule with this guy. He's leading the way here right now. He's our little sweet tyrant. But I'll likely be recording within the next few months. And, so many people, I feel like lucky, I can make this record anytime. It'll be a different record than the one I was going to make at that moment. Just because times have changed. I have other songs that might, weigh in a little heavier that wouldn't have made it the first time around. Maybe the crew will be different depending on how this pandemic timing shakes out. But it was definitely that was a huge sacrifice. I was so ready to make that record. And like even to the point of touring to Chattanooga with the band. and like I was on tour in the Northeast in February with, I opened for Josh Ritter. I like played some places out of the way and just in order to feel these songs under my fingers and like get those calluses good and thick. And, I gotta get those calluses back because I've been washing a lot of baby bottles and, and not sleeping. It doesn't do numbers. It does numbers on your voice, I think. So I want to see if I can get a month or two under my belt with this little guy. And then the songs are waiting for me. So I'm so excited to do that though. That's like the next, big, I don't know. For me, it's like a vacation. It's like a big party. It's like the amount of work you put into planning a wedding or whatever, people having a baby or, moving to a new town or starting a new job. Like for me, that's making a record is just like all consuming and in a really wonderful way. But a newborn is all consuming in a different, really wonderful way. So, that's the reality right now. But luckily I live in Music City. And so when I'm ready, there's, just about, 100 rooms to choose from. And, I can't wait. I'll talk to you all about that as soon as I have the music. But for now, this song, I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait around for the world to change like it has every, week since I wrote it. And, I just felt like I needed to get it out there.
Yeah. It was, I loved what I read as far as like you guys kind of making a makeshift studio out of a nursery and, using like the baby monitors.
It worked, you know.
That's such.
We already had it.
Yeah, it's such a great image as like, well, these are dual purpose now.
Yeah, so. And it was hard to do. I recorded at home, and I was 8 months pregnant, so I tried to do it once, and we got a live version of just me solo, and Noam Pikelny, my husband, he was helping engineer it, and we liked this version, but then there's something just didn't keep catching us about it, and so of course you just try again. And by that point I was a house, and so my guitar was off to my side fully, and I was standing up instead of sitting down. We changed the key, and that's where this song came from. I just felt like so much more moved by listening back to this one. So that's where we went from. I had no idea I was going to be so it was a very different scenario for recording than I'd ever imagined. But there's a lot to be said for the isolation between the vocal mic and the guitar mic if you got it one off to the side instead of firing at the same zone. So I might try to change my style for good now.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's what I like so much about it is you also just kind of felt like you needed to record this. And, I don't even know if there's like we gotta like on the other side of things as far as like, we need to keep people engaged or anything like that. But I just love like I need to record this song and let's, set something up here in the house and kind of figure it out and just work with what we have and make it work. I love that. So,
I think everything you do it should feel like your life depends on it. You should sing like your hair is on fire. Like that's the goal. Everything should feel urgent and intense. If you want it to, you have to feel that if it's going to ever come across that way, and I think it just felt like I had to get this song out off my desk and, out into the world, and it didn't feel right just sitting on it. And I don't really have any other master plan to when records are released or how to keep people engaged or anything like that. I just, it just felt, the song felt so necessary. And I hope I can hold anything I put out to that bar. That's an intense way of putting things, but there should also be like an ease and natural quality to things as well. So that I try to toe that line. Something that feels like a song should be able to be sung on the porch and comfortable, and it should also be able to take a lot of friends playing along and bringing their voice to it too. I feel like that the songs I write have to function both ways for me to really, really love them.
Yeah. Like a lot of your songs, especially on this last record, I feel like they just like, they take up a very organic and natural space. There is that sparseness and that space. And I think that like people sometimes can be scared of space. They can like think like, oh, since we are cutting in the studio, let's use everything to our advantage as far as we can try other things and we can fill up spots. And for you, like on this on your records, it feels like you take advantage of that space to really highlight either like your vocals or those pedal stills or those fiddles or whatever the other instrumentation is in the song. Does that also come with, you mentioned kind of recording these records in shorter amounts of time in just, that 3 or 4, 5 day space?
Yes, I think I'm not anti overdub entirely, but I tend to be attracted to the more sparse, spare, nature of a song. So you can hear the lyrics, hear the voice, hear not just my voice, but like the folks I play with. You hear on that Motel Bouquet, the record you're talking about, you can hear Stuart Duncan playing fiddle, and I want to hear him shine. I don't want it to just feel like there's fiddle sounds happening. I mean, Stuart Duncan, for crying out loud, and Paul Court played bass on that record, and you can hear his personality in his playing. I think that's what you want to hear, that voice, and so that's where my ear goes. And if there's too much stuff going on, I'm just like, why do we need 4 acoustic guitars strumming along, just covering up the good stuff? We don't have to hide behind anything. And I usually have, these last few records, I've just had amazing players. There's no, they can do the absolutely brilliant thing live, because that's the way we've been, we've spent most of the folks I play with are touring folks. And so we're usually playing a song one time in front of a live audience, and then it just turns the whole thing on its head if you go into the studio, for me, and start with drums, and then somebody else comes in and layers something on top, and then you did vocals first, but then you record your vocals at the end. Like, you're just chasing your tail at that point. So I've personally found, I think, with the scratches and all, it sounds better if I'm singing to the band, leading the band, following the band, like in that live moment, rather than trying to perfect something after the fact and chasing the band that was chasing me. It just feels wrong, and it sounds kind of weird to me. It sounds a little more robotic. So anything I've done like that, I've usually felt, less inclined to release, which as I've sat on a whole record I didn't release because it kind of went down like that. And that, I don't want to just say it's my way or the highway. I only do records one way, and it's live, and there's no overdubs, because, there's backing vocals were overdubbed on Motel. Gabe Witcher wasn't in the room. He recorded, I think, on 2 songs. And I think Noam layered something on a track. It's just like, because we felt like it needed it, but it's not like what you're saying, well, we're paying a drummer to be here, so he's going to be on every single thing. Like, that kind of mentality isn't really my, I try not to put something on just because there happens to be a high strung guitar in the corner, and why not put it on every track?
Yeah. No, I
That's the
love,
danger of a studio. Yeah, you're like you were saying.
yeah, I love that that what you said a second ago, of like the, I don't want it to just be fiddle sounds. I wanted you to know that it's Stuart Duncan in there. Like that, I think that just like sums up everything right
And that
there.
was that record. So the fiddle sounds you're hearing on this one is like the "Where the Heart of My Country," the single, is Brittany Haas playing, and she just kills me. We played live together as a duo, and it's almost distracting. She's just like such a brilliant player, and her tone she's just got her own voice. And I don't know if you've ever seen her play live, but I don't know, she's somewhere between like a boxer and a ballerina. I think there's some kind of like tough intensity to what she does, and this like just absolute astounding kind of gracefulness to it as well. And so she really is like the lead voice on "Where's the Heart of My Country." The way she holds the song together with her playing was essential.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've said this I think a couple episodes back too, is how, a lot of times you need to, like, listeners need to understand that a lot of times that pedal or that fiddle or violin or banjo is like the kind of thing. Sometimes think of like that song of the song you're listening to as like a duet. And like those other instruments are that other voice. That's the response to whatever you just finished saying.
Absolutely. I love how you said that. When we were, so Andrew Marlin was gracious enough to sing backing vocals on "Where's the Heart of My Country." And we've never sung together in person. And I kept saying I hear a male backing vocal like Andrew Marlin's voice, and we're like, well, why don't we just ask Andrew? And his singing is so profound, and it feels we wanted, when we heard the first mix, that Brandon Bell did such a beautiful job mixing this. His voice is quieter, and we're like, we don't want a backing vocal. We want more of a closer duet sound. His voice is so rich, and it's dancing with mine. So it's got to be up front and center, and that's the kind of feeling I have with Brittany's fiddle as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just such a, I love like also those kind of songs where you listen to the song and you hear those little things, but then like it compels you to go check the liner notes, because you're just kind of like on that, is that who is that right there? And I'm always like such a liner notes person anyway, so I love just like looking at who's playing on this, who's singing on this, and I love kind of like that discovery, I guess. So
Me too.
I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Sotol is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. So, are you familiar with Bruce Robinson?
Oops, I'm sorry. I had on mute for a second.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I guess
Traveling Soldier.
Yeah. So here in Texas, he's been doing more producing work, and what he has is this thing called the Next Waltz, and it's all old analog, and he's set up outside of Austin, and he has been recording a bunch of different artists and then putting out a couple of albums too. But a lot of it's just kind of like singles and stuff like that they just kind of go into the room in one day and cut songs. And so much of what's tied to that is the analog aspect, and how like you only have so many mics to use and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess it was like last year I interviewed him about him and his wife, Kelly Willis's new album, and we were talking about that, and he had like a line that just kind of really reminded me of what you were talking about just a second ago with, you know, does it kind of feel there's a strangeness if you're recording and just overdubbing and to no end, that kind of thing. And what he said was, let's see here. But sometimes to me, the process of digitizing music and working on it in that way is as effective as digitizing an omelet or a loaf of bread and then trying to eat it. I kind of felt like you would appreciate that.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to throw any shade at people who do it that way. There's a lot of folks who make beautiful things just by that, you know, that method, and they can edit to no end and change things and listen back and really be the writer and producer of their own music, you know, they can control the whole world. And I think that you can find beautiful stuff that way. I just tend to not perform at my best if that's the scenario, and I enjoy it less. It's so much more fun to, you know, play a live show in the studio essentially and be able to do that song a bunch of different ways. And, you know, if you don't get it in those 5 takes that you tried, you can always go back.
Right.
But,
yeah. Well, you know, like that's something too, is like, again, like I also don't want to sound like I'm just like, this is the only way to do it. But, for you and like these songs, I feel like there's like what you've been doing is the right way for you. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of like, there's always, I guess, there's always exceptions to the rule, and there's always like a way to do it for everyone. There's a million ways, and if you want to do it whatever way you want to, and you can make great records no matter how you do it. But like what you've been doing, I feel like there's like just some magic that I really appreciate.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, you know, like what have you been doing as far, you mentioned like, you know, being having a baby, a newborn, during all this. What else has like kind of been occupying your time since you haven't been able to cut that record and you haven't really been able to go out and play and be on tour? What other things have been occupying your time? Other than like
so I live in Nashville, in East Nashville, and the week before coronavirus locked everybody away, we got hit by a tornado, and it came through my neighborhood and right up to our front yard, where you know, it's still striking looking at snapped trees in our driveway. You know what I mean? Like the view is completely changed. And, you know, we can see our neighbors' houses still with blue tarps on them, or the houses that are gone now because they had to be demolished because they weren't, you know, able to rebuild. And so it was such a crazy thing. I drove with my mom, who was coming to visit, from my last show in February. We were up in Saratoga Springs. And so she decided to do the long haul with me, a 15-hour trip back to Tennessee. And we were trying to get home. No one wasn't home. And my friend was staying with our dogs, was, you know, kind of on call. Like, if we make it before nightfall, if we stop at a hotel, then we'll see you tomorrow. But we're going to try to haul straight through. And we got in 2 hours before the tornado hit. And when we pulled in, you know, it was this weird balmy night. I had just been up north. So coming back to Tennessee, I was like, Mom, welcome to the humidity. But it was seriously, you know, swampy out. And we had watched, as we were driving in, a lightning storm up ahead that was pretty spectacular from a distance. But, you know, we just followed the weather. We were going to get hit by something. So let's load in as fast as we can and get the dogs taken care of. And we have one dog who's just hates thunderstorms so much. So I planned to sleep down in the basement anyway, because she was going to wake me up in an hour if there was a thunderstorm coming through. So we headed down to our tornado safe place. Without thinking about tornadoes, there was a 2% chance, which is pretty common around here. Every time there's a severe weather warning, it's like hail, 10%, tornado, 2%. It doesn't seem that outlandish to have tornado warnings, but it's a tornado warning. No one was keeping an eye on the weather more than I was, following this Twitter account, Nashville Severe Weather, which has probably saved so many lives. They're like on the ball with all their reports. And he said, if you haven't put the van away, you might want to get it out of just get it out of the line of the trees nearby, because there's high winds and hail likely. And I told my mom, because she'd never been around tornadoes, if you hear tornado sirens, you book it downstairs with me as fast as you can. But otherwise, see you in the morning. And I saw her an hour later, because this huge one roared by, and it's just amazing to see what happened here. So we spent that week helping everybody pick up the pieces. There's just debris everywhere, of folks' houses, in the schoolyard, in our yard, and a lot of folks were out without power for a week and a half. One road over, so we were, hosting folks for charging, and we were using our oven for lots of baked goods and bread and things from neighbors, and that occupied the time right before coronavirus happened. So our stores were kind of cleaned out of toilet paper before that became a trend around the country. We were already kind of holed up, because you couldn't really walk too far or drive very far, due to the tornado. And so there's also this little park nearby that is one of my favorite spots. It looked like kind of a secret garden. It's a little neighborhood patch of really tall trees and shady groves, and that took a direct hit from the tornado. And so a bunch of us got together and have formed, kind of a Friends of the Park group, and it's pretty loose, but it's a lot of neighbors and volunteers who've I kind of, with another group, helped lead a charge to plant 100 trees over there. And we got 100 trees donated from, the Nashville Tree Conservation Corps is amazing. They spearheaded all the, getting all these trees dropped off. But I kind of was on the communication side, and I know a lot of out-of-work musicians who have a little time on their hands. So a lot of friends and a lot of musicians planted trees in the park over here. And that was I think we started planting maybe June 1st, and they made it through the summer, and there's a bunch of wildflowers over there now. And it feels a lot more hopeful, but it's definitely been a good chunk of my time. So planting trees and gardening at home at a very, small level, that means putting some tomato plants in and crossing my fingers. That's been taking up my time, and having a baby takes up a little bit of time.
Right,
but but trying to figure him out, it's actually kind of like a small list of demands that he has, though. You just try to figure out which one it is right now. Are you hungry? No. Are you tired? No. Okay. Check your diaper? No. Well, let's try it again. So he's a lot of fun and a lot of discovery. It's like watching a person look at a book for the first time, or look at a tree for the first time, or he's obsessed with this mobile. My friend Miss Tess, she and I were on tour together, and we stayed at a friend's house, and this woman makes these mobiles out of felt balls on a really light stick and connected by one very thin string. And so they kind of rotate in the slightest breeze. And every time he sees that thing, it's like, the first time he saw the moon or something. It just lights up. It's so cool. So it's been a lot of fun. I definitely feel the itch to tour and to play. I know I know so many people who are feeling that, and I can't tell you how lucky I feel to have had a baby right now. I feel like everyone's on kind of a long maternity leave with me. There's no gig that I'm missing out on at the moment. And I'm having like such a good time with this little guy. So I don't feel like I'm on my A game as far as it goes with my closeness to my guitar or to my songs, but I'm also, plotting for that next record. So we'll see. I'm getting close those studio doors as soon as I can. And my dog just walked in. That's the other thing I should have mentioned. The dogs are so happy. They have never spent so much time with both. My husband and I are usually, tag teaming, who's home with the dogs. They just got us under a lock and key right now. So they've been so good. And, it's very strange to be home so long. I don't think in 10 years that I've been doing this, I've ever spent a full summer at home, and it's pretty wonderful. But I'll be roaming around as soon as I can.
Yeah. Well, that trees, like planting the trees and kind of leading that's incredible. Like that's like, I think where, not to go off on this tangent too far, but I feel like people always kind of look at trying to, you can't change the world. You can't change the direction of the country. You can't, like, you don't have a big enough voice. And my whole thing is like, you have to like find those changes locally. And that's how you have an impact. And you planting it, like, or you leading the charge planting like 100 trees, that's like going to have a lasting impact, both like just on you in your neighborhood, and then also just in a bigger spot. Maybe like people listen to this and then they think like, oh, I can plant 100 trees where I live.
Well,
so.
It's selfish too, though, and it's self-serving, I guess. Like I was, what do they call it? Doom scrolling? Is that what I've heard that term? Like I was reading the news and getting so upset all the time. And the tornado, just the visual reminder of our world being turned upside down started a week before everyone's world got turned upside down. Here we got that realization, and then a baby turns your world upside down. It's just like, there's no givens, and there's no, I guess, security or, there's nothing that can't change dramatically. And it seems to be 2020 seems to be reminding us of that every other second. And so for me, like I love being in nature. It makes me feel more hopeful. And to see this spot that was like that restorative little pocket of a city just wrecked made me feel like, well, I can dig, so I'll do that. And what really made me feel good, I'm totally a tree hugger. I worked, when I was working in an office, I was working as a sustainability consultant and working in, that was my New York job when I was helping companies be greener, essentially, way back when. And that's always been a strong streak of mine. But I didn't realize that, like a lot of folks who lost their houses over the one street over in Hawley, they were just saying, well, I can rebuild, but I miss my trees. Like I can't regrow those 40-year-old trees or those 100-year-old trees while I'm here. I'm starting from scratch. It's going to take a lot longer. I was shocked that was the thing that they were sad about. Like, they were homeless. Some of them were homeless. Some of them were living in different spots. And then, coronavirus hit, locking them in those spots. It's crazy. Like they're supposed to be quarantining at home. They have no home all of a sudden, but they're worried about trees. It felt like that'd be something I would be worried about, but you guys too, you're not tree huggers. It's just how much joy and peace those things would bring them. So it felt like, okay, I can bake a couple cookies for my neighbors, but like bringing that park back to life, it wasn't just me. It was a lot of people around here who just felt like, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I've heard some other kind of stories that have, happened out of Nashville post tornado. Like there's been some good journalism, some good media, like everyone wants to bash the media, but there's been some great stories coming out of Nashville as far as community goes and rebuilding efforts and a sense of place, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. What a ridiculous moment too, to feel like, there's such a outpouring of volunteer spirit, right when you feel this different kind of dodging a bullet. Like you feel, what is a survivor guilt? I guess I understand what that means. Like your neighbor's house is ruined and yours, we had a dog toy, a stuffed red lobster that a friend had tried to throw in the door, and she threw it on the roof, the porch roof. And she took a picture of it saying like, oops, sorry about that. And the tornado left that there. Like it left the bird feeder on its little hook. Meanwhile, like huge trees a few yards away were flat out. And it's just like, how is one thing untouched and one thing demolished? And so, okay, well, we can do something about this twist of fate. We can all get together. And you should have seen the foot traffic of people just running around with like brown bag lunches trying to help feed the volunteers. I saw a woman she had a toddler on her back, and she was using some like major clippers, cutting the branches off a fallen tree in her yard while someone else was chainsawing a few feet away. Like it's just a massive amount of chainsaw choir. And I know there were so many chainsaws in East Nashville. I mean, more chainsaws than, I don't know, bicycles, it seems like. And people just leapt into action. I heard that when there were a lot of contracted out-of-state tree crews that have to come in before any power can go back on and before, the cleanup of houses can happen. It was really like the tree debris lining the streets and blocking the streets had to get hauled out. And so many of these guys came with chainsaws, and their job had already been done by just the neighbors who were leaping into action. And so I think you're right. That was a really, really sweet outpouring of support. And then you're told to actually go home and stay home because you can't gather together at this moment. It was just like such whiplash. Like, but the only thing I want to do is go check on my neighbors and like get a party together and feel like, feel good again. And it was definitely an intense moment. And I was pregnant at the time too. So I was trying to like not, read too much, dive too much into the dark hole, because it wasn't just me I was dragging there with me, and
right.
So I had this, reason to not despair. But boy, what a freaking mess of, of March in 2020. I don't know if that's going to fall right out of the calendar. So heavy.
Yeah. It's, this year has been, surreal and strange, and I don't know, just all the above. So it's, I don't know. It's just going to be that year, I guess.
But when do you remember in your lifetime? It's certainly not in mine, when everybody's been suffering from the same thing at the same time, like I feel like music used to be something that, like maybe when the Beatles played, when they released their new song, everybody listened to it. Like music has become so fractured. I have no idea, what's a hit and what's not, or if there even is a hit anymore, like we're not all reading the same news. We're not all tuned into the same news channel or anything. Like there's just such a fractured the existence, but this virus and the reaction to it certainly has been something everybody is dealing with in different ways, but it's not, whose life has it not changed? Maybe someone who's hiking the Appalachian Trail and hasn't, resurfaced yet, but otherwise everyone's life has been altered. And that's something,
Yeah. Like like what you're talking about there is there's a lack of like monoculture. Like everyone, you can just kind of like fit into your own. If there's a whatever you like, you're gonna find your people. Like that's like right now. Like obviously that's like there's not a hit television show per se. There's a billion minor hit television shows with like a fan base that are diehard, but like there's I guess like the last time there was something even remotely close to a hit show was
9/11. I thought you were going to say
well, I was going to say
show.
a hit
They're going to
show
say
was
what the cultural thing.
Yeah,
9/11 affected everybody.
Yeah, no, like that definitely. What I was going to say is Game of Thrones,
You're
but
like,
even at that, like Game of
Thrones.
Thrones was not like it wasn't like Seinfeld or Friends or I don't know what other, you know what I'm saying? Titanic.
When you flip back through the deck. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I guess like what is, definitely like 9/11, but now like even at 9/11, you felt like your world had changed, but,
maybe the idea of your world rather than your immediate world for most people.
Exactly. It's kind of like, what is it like whenever, I guess like if they go back through the layers of and like the shocked quartz, right? Like whenever there's been like a giant comet that's hit the earth or something like that. I think it's like shocked quartz where they're able to like tell the difference between the eons, if you will. I haven't been in college in forever, so now I'm trying to like recollect on what that is. But yeah, like that. Like, this is like the watershed moment of our lives. You know, that's just kind of this like you're not going to forget. So it's just I don't know. I don't even know how like if I don't know if like it's hard to like try and process and put it into words in the moment.
Absolutely, I think that's. It's hard to process and put into words, and artists and writers, songwriters, I always think of, I don't react immediately and write a song the next morning. You know, when John Prine died, I know a lot of people who wrote songs right then. And for me, that's something that will filter into the songs that I'm writing and the things that I'm thinking and feeling like in like almost like groundwater. You know, it takes a while for stuff to come on down and filter through for that stream underground. Like it's not an immediate reactive thing that I do. It's not like I usually write a protest song or something. And but I think I know a lot of my friends are either musicians or work in restaurants, and everybody is dealing with like a change in their identity. You know, it's not just like filtering what's going on in the world and trying to find their take on it and you share it. You know, that's usually what a song is, I guess. But they're really struggling with like a absolute change in identity and angst and wondering how their job's going to work. I'm, wondering if when they're able to tour again, if those places that they've spent visiting all the time, all the small clubs and in bigger clubs, if they're going to still be there, if the restaurant where you got your favorite, meal before, or is that still going to be there, and are they still going to be able to tour? There's just like, there's a real moment of questioning, like, who am I and what am I doing here? And so I think it's hard for folks to be writing about it at the same time. I don't think I would have written a song, post March, you know what I mean? Like, I'm glad I wrote it, and I'm glad it still feels like it meets this world in the place we are right now. But I don't feel like I can write something until I let it filter through a bit more. And, I think we're all kind of still reeling from all the change in reality. And it's hard to have a take on it if you're just kind of off balance. Yeah, it's amazing what's, I don't know where to place my bets, how the world's going to change further, but it is definitely a moment that we're all reckoning with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really, really great talking with you today about just all kinds of stuff.
You too.
All right, that does it for this episode and for this week. Go check out Caitlin Canty's latest song, Where's the Heart of My Country? Go visit our presenting partners over at Desert Door and the Blue Light Live. Stop by the New Slang Patreon if you're interested. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks.